Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. You've been so supportive in the last few weeks, considering that I've just been on the platform for roughly now 3 weeks since I started posting my videos, and I've seen a massive support from you guys. Thank you so much for being supportive. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for actually also subscribing, sharing the link with your friends. I've seen a few of my friends have been posting the link on their WhatsApp status and on their Instagram stories and also on their Facebook stories. So my friends and family have been really supportive, and you guys as well. You're also my family since we are here together. So thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Let's continue supporting one another. Yeah, thank you very much. So today's topic, I'm going to talk about so I've been thinking about the what happens, something about experiences. So we usually learn from experience. It's known that we learn from experience, and there's one thing that I've learned. If I take you back, I think a week ago I posted about my brother coming into Australia, and I actually took a short video, short shots, and combined them and put them on my YouTube channel, and you guys were very supportive. You watched. I wanted to share about the way he came from Kenya, Africa to here. So it's not because I'm not sharing because the story was so unique, but there's something I learned from that, and probably it might help someone else. My brother got his visa on 3 weeks ago. It was on a Saturday. No, 2 weeks ago, sorry. It was on a Saturday. Then that it happened that after he got his visa, it happened that the following weekend, which was on a Saturday, there was a football, like the soccer match happening in Australia, in Melbourne to be specific, and so that made the flights to be really pricey. The flights from Kenya to Australia were very costly. So normally, one way ticket would cost around maybe 1,300, I think 1,500. But since the COVID happened, after they opened the boundaries, like after they opened the borders, sorry, the borders, after the borders were opened, the flights went quite they were pricey because the flight business was put to hold during the COVID season. So when they came back, the flights prices went higher, but they were not as crazy as the week that my brother was supposed to come. So normally the prices would be around 2,400. That is after the borders were opened. They were around 2,400 US dollars. And that week that there was a football match or a soccer match in Melbourne, the flights were ranging from around 4,000 to 5,000, 5,600. So I was so torn because my brother was supposed to come in by before 18th. He was supposed to be here because on 18th he had his orientation, which was supposed to happen on campus. So in one way or another he had to come in between that week. That is between the time he got his visa and 18th of July. Yes, July. So as we were thinking and looking around, looking for flights, we didn't use any agent because we've always booked for flights before. Like so it was not a big deal to book for a flight for on our own. So me and my family here, we hopped into the internet and we were looking for the flights, and the flights were so expensive. So normally when coming to Australia, we would use an airline like Fly Emirates, or we would use Qatar Airways. we would use, like myself, when I came to Australia, I used China Airways. And these are quite known flights, and they are straightforward. But during that week, these flights were quite pricey. As I mentioned, they were ranging from 4,000 to 5,000. There was even another one for 6,000, and that's a really, really expensive flight. So as we were looking around, we found one that was around 2,400, and it looked nice. It was ranging between it was falling around our budget. So we quickly went in and booked, and the flight was almost full. So we were like, let's quickly go in and actually book for the flight. So we did that. And then after booking the flight, one thing that was a bit different from the other flights was the baggage, the amount of luggage. The luggage weight, the total weight for the luggage was 27 kilos. That was in an international flight. Normally, like for example, when I was coming to Australia, the flight I used, I was given 23 kilo, two suitcases, each 23, and one carry-on, which I take into the plane, which was 7 kilos. So that comes to 23 times 2 is 46 plus 7, 50, 46 plus, yeah, 50 something kilos. So but my brother's flight, he was only given 27 kilos. So one was a big suitcase, which was supposed to be 20 kilos, and another small one carry-on, which was supposed to be 7 kilos. So and if you've traveled, if you live maybe or traveled abroad, we want to send people from Africa different, we want to send them different stuff like hair, we want to get maybe maize flour, or maybe there's so much stuff that we can get from Africa that we don't get here, or maybe it's way cheaper, so we tend to buy them from Africa, and then when someone is coming over, they bring it for us. So in this case, it was so hard because my brother had to carry his own clothes or his own stuff, documents and all that, and then I wouldn't, like myself, I wouldn't even add a lot of stuff for him to bring for me. But the good thing is he brought me my baby's porridge flour, so which is very nice. I enjoy that and I love that. My mother prepared for me. He took it to the posho mill and made it so nicely, and my baby loves the porridge, so that was one thing that I enjoy from that. But anyway, generally the luggage was quite small, but anyway, that was not a big thing because anyway, we can always get someone else coming to bring us the stuff. So anyway, my brother boarded the flight from Kenya. The flight was Kenya Airways, so he boarded the flight from Kenya on Friday, it was on a Friday, and it was around 8:30. He boarded the flight. So the flight was supposed to go to the first stopover was in Thailand, Bangkok. So one thing, before my brother boarded the flight, because we booked the flight and he had a whole week in Kenya to say goodbye, to go and say bye to family and friends and pack his stuff and arrange himself ready to come over. So before he came, there was just one thing in my heart that kept because in the ticket, when I look at the ticket, it said you need to contact the airports, the transit airports, and check if he needed a transit visa. So in my heart I was like, oh my god, did I make a mistake? I was so worried in my heart. I wasn't sure if the cheap flight was the best flight. But then because we were trying to cut on the budget, because we want to go to the cheapest, but because I haven't used the flight before, we thought maybe it's fine. So and then I went into one of the WhatsApp group, which so many Kenyans are there most Kenyans who have come to Australia, and some are in Kenya, and people discuss different stuff there. So I went into that WhatsApp group and asked people, has anyone used these flights that go through Malaysia and Thailand and Philippines? And people said, yeah, the flights are okay. No one said they've used it, but someone mentioned and said the flight is okay, it is fine, you will not have any problem. And I asked, do I need a transit visa? Do you guys, does anyone know? And no one actually knew. So I took it upon myself. Before the end of the week, I called the embassy, the Kenyan embassy, sorry, the Thailand embassy in Kenya. So I called them. I called and I asked if my brother needed a transit visa. They told me he doesn't need a transit visa. I also rang the Malaysian embassy in Kenya and asked the same question, and also the Philippines embassy in Kenya, and asked the same thing. And they told me he doesn't need a visa, a transit visa, that is. So mind you, he only has the Australian visa, but he doesn't have any visas for Thailand, Malaysia, or Philippines, which were the transit countries. So so I was okay, because they told me that he doesn't need it. I went onto the websites as well. For example, I went to the Thailand website. The website said, if you're from Kenya, because I wanted to know what are they, because there's different rules for people from different countries. So I asked specifically for rules for people from Kenya, residents or citizens from Kenya, and it said if you're from Kenya and you're transiting through Thailand, Bangkok, and your transit is not, you don't have to stay in the airport for more than 12 hours, you don't need a transit visa. My brother was supposed to stay in Thailand, Bangkok, for only 9 hours. That means he was not above 12 hours, you understand? So he didn't need a transit visa, and I still had made a call, so I was now kind of sure he didn't need a transit visa. Little did I know. So when he boarded the flight, it was so nice, it was good, we were happy. He boarded the flight, he went up to Thailand, and by the time he was in Thailand, Australia, it was night time. So we were sleeping. So he got to Thailand, and at around 3 a.m. So I woke up to breastfeed my baby. And when then I said, let me check my phone and see if maybe my brother is still okay. Maybe he's called me, and I always put my phone on silent. So I said, let me check my phone and see what's happening. That was 3 a.m. in Australia on a Saturday morning now, 3 a.m. of Saturday. So when I checked my phone, and boom, my brother texted me. He said in Thailand, they've asked him for a visa, transit visa to Malaysia, which was the next country he was supposed to transit to, then to Philippines, then from Philippines he would come to Australia. And he had called me so many times, but I was sleeping. He called my sister back in Kenya, and then my sister called me, and I couldn't answer none because I was sleeping. I couldn't see the phone. So I panicked. Immediately I panicked. So I called him, and luckily yeah, we talked, and I asked him. So I had to follow up. I had to ask him if we could buy a visa over there, so at least if I could buy a visa through my credit card, because he didn't have enough money to buy the visa anyway. So they said no, he can't buy a visa unless he applies for the visa, and the visa might take a day or two. So that meant they would take him back to Kenya, and then he would wait from Kenya for the visa, then he books another flight. So then I asked him to ask the ladies, because I actually told him to give the people in the airport the phone. I talked to them, they refused. So I had to call him, ask him questions, then he asked the help desk questions. So it was so much back and forth. But anyway, so they said the only option they gave him was to board another flight, to book for another flight, which was the following day. the following day in the morning. So he had to stay in the airport the whole night, and then the following morning, they told him to book for another flight, which was coming from Thailand direct to Australia the following morning. Anyway, so we had to, with back and forth, so much struggle here and there, looking for a flight during the night, trying to see the cheapest flight, because again, we had already spent a lot of money, and then now again we are back to, it's like we are back to square zero. So anyway, we booked for the flight, and that means I didn't sleep anymore. Actually, I was so stressed. I panicked, but thank God we booked the flight. I sent him the ticket. I sent him actually no, they sent him in directly, and he was able to board the plane. But something happened before he boarded his flight, because he was so tired. So he boarded the flight earlier. Then that is earlier because he was in the airport the whole night. So he boarded, actually no, he didn't board. He checked in quite early. So at some point I called him and I couldn't get him because I wanted to know what is happening. At some point I called him and I couldn't get him. So and I was so stressed. I don't know what is going on. Have they checked him in? Have they allowed him to board the flight? And then something I forgot to mention is his bag, his, like, the luggage, the one that was in the flight, the bigger luggage, that is. By the time he got to Thailand, they told him they can't see his bag, that they need to contact KQ, that is Kenya Airways, and find his bag. So it was so hard for him going from one desk to another. And mind you, the people in Thailand, they don't speak English. I don't know what language that is. But anyway, he could get one or two people who understood English, but most of them didn't understand English. So it was even hard to communicate with them. So when I said that I was trying to look for him and I couldn't find him, I was so stressed. So I decided, let me call the airport, because I knew the airport he was in. So I called the airport. I tried to call some numbers, but I was told, sorry, it is out of hours. But luckily I called and I was told to call the airways. I called the airport. The airport told me to call the airway. That is, he was supposed to use Thai Airways, sorry. So I actually rang the airways and I asked for him. So they asked me for the details, the ticket number, his date of birth, his name, and they actually told me he had already checked in. So that was good. He had checked in, so he was only waiting to board the flight. Then I kept looking for him and they couldn't look for him. I asked him, couldn't you just call him over the microphone? They said, no, sorry, we can't do that. So anyway, so I just stayed waiting, hoping that he'll call me back, but he didn't actually. So the whole day he boarded the flight. So he had actually, I think his phone had went off and he didn't have a charger because he forgot his charger back in Kenya. So he couldn't call me, he couldn't tell me what's going on. Anyway, luckily he boarded the flight. And actually before he boarded the flight, so this is what he told me when he came over, that because he was so tired, he slept. And then while waiting on the way you wait on the gate and you sit waiting for the gate to be open, so he was just seated there. Then he fell asleep. And by the time he woke up, everyone had boarded the flight except him, and he was remaining with only 10 minutes. But luckily they allowed him to get in the flight, and I was so scared. When he told me that, I was like, oh my God, what could have happened? But thank God he boarded the flight. Then he came over up to Melbourne, and he got to Melbourne late, a bit late. And then again, he had to spend the whole night at the airport, which was so sad. Yeah, it was quite sad. But the flight to Adelaide was the following morning, quite early. So he spent the night. Then the following morning, he caught the flight, which was 6 in the morning, and he was in Adelaide by 7. One thing I've learned from this story is this: cheap is expensive. Well, cheap is expensive because I think I went with the cheapest flight, but at the end of the day, I ended up paying even more than the $4,000. I ended up paying around 4,500 because from Melbourne to Adelaide, the flights were very, very expensive. They were around $600, and I didn't have an option. I had to pay for it. So at the end of the day, I ended up paying quite more. The money I was trying to run away from, I ended up paying more than that. And I really learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson from that experience. So anyone traveling, if you're traveling to Australia probably, or I don't know, maybe to any other country, before you fly, before you book for that, and I would actually advise people to maybe use the agencies, the travel agencies. I think they know better, because before my brother came over, one of the agents told me not to book a flight through India, because one of the clients was returned back to Kenya, and that was what. So I tried to run away from India, but I got myself in Thailand, and Thailand made me pay what I was running away from. So if you like this video, please remember to like it, share, comment, and kindly subscribe, guys. Help me grow the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.